Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about Kourtney Kardashian's pregnancy reveal, Ezra Miller being responsible for the Flash movie bombing, and the new Oscars rule that's sparking backlash with viewers. Alright, first up, it's official, Kourtney Kardashian is expecting a child with her husband Travis Barker. This news was announced in the cutest way possible. Kourtney revealed the surprise during Friday's Blink-182 concert in LA. In the audience, she showed off her baby bump and held up a sign that read, "Travis, I'm pregnant," all while he was on stage. Although he clearly knew beforehand, Travis had joined her in the crowd for a hug and kiss to celebrate. The stunt was an exact reenactment of the classic music video for All the Small Things, where a woman holds up exactly the same poster. So they pulled it off really well. Kourtney then took to her Instagram and made a post saying, "Overwhelmed with gratitude and joy for God's blessing and plan." She also posted a sweet backstage photo of Travis kissing and drumming on her stomach. A source recently spoke to people about her pregnancy news and said, "Kourtney is just beyond excited. She had happy tears when she told her family. Her older kids are excited about the baby too." The source went on to say that Kourtney has been praying for this. She's been wanting a baby with Travis since they first started dating. They have been trying to get pregnant for almost 2 years. It's been grueling. The two of them each have children from previous relationships. Kourtney shares 2 sons, Mason Rain, and a daughter, Penelope, with Scott Disick, while Travis shares his son Landon and a daughter, Alabama, with Shanna Moakler. The happy pregnancy news comes after they recently had stopped IVF treatment, but they were still hoping to have a baby together. During a confessional on the Kardashians, Kourtney said, "We are officially done with IVF. We would love a baby more than anything, but I really believe in what God has in store for us. If that's a baby, I believe it will happen." So far, the response to this announcement has been overwhelmingly positive, because so many fans feel like they were on this journey with them. One person tweeted, "Kourtney Kardashian being pregnant makes me so happy because they tried so many times and it's so rewarding when it finally happens." Another person wrote, "Yes, Kourtney Kardashian normalized having a baby after 40, because that's the only reasonable age for me to have a child." And that's the other thing about this news, is that it's encouraging for other women who are looking to have children later in life, but they might be a little nervous about having trouble conceiving or potential issues that might come with pregnancy over 40. Kourtney and Travis were married in an intimate wedding ceremony in Portofino, Italy. Dolce & Gabbana designed her wedding dress when she married him for a 3rd time in May of 2022. But shortly after their wedding, Kim created a collaboration with Dolce & Gabbana, and she made a memorable appearance at their show during Milan Fashion Week. This is what really seemed to set Kourtney off. In season 3 of the Kardashians, she accused Kim of using her wedding as a business opportunity. So she thinks that Kim stole some of the limelight just to be able to profit off of it for the same brand. In one scene, Kourtney is sitting across from Kendall and talking about Kim's role in the show. She puts her face in her hands and starts to cry, saying she just sees it as the dollar signs. "Sorry, it upsets me because it's just not about business. It's just legit copying my wedding." And later in the preview, Kim asks she's mad at me, and she seems to be genuinely thrown off by the whole idea. Apparently things got so bad between the sisters at one point that Kourtney removed herself from all 4 of their family group chats. Thankfully, Kim spoke out about the fight recently and said that she and her sister have smoothed things over. She said, "We've been there before and we'll always be okay. We're always family. That's how we were raised." It turns out it was the actual show that created a lot of these arguments between them. Kim said, "You film it, we think we're good, and then we make up, and then you edit it, and I'm seeing all the things she's saying behind my back, and she's seeing all the things that I'm saying behind her back, and the tension rises all over again. It gets really tricky and it gets really emotional, but at the end of the day, we still love sharing our life." So that drama that we see on their show is not only real, it actually has a tendency to affect their real life relationships. Now let's talk about The Flash and how it's turned into possibly one of the most expensive flops of the year. The movie debuted with just $130 million worldwide, making it the lowest 3-day global opening weekend for the DCEU, just behind that movie Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which also tanked with just $133 million back in March. The opening weekend crowds gave The Flash a B cinema score, and it currently sits at 66% on Rotten Tomatoes. And without positive audience scores or a strong word of mouth, the movie is really going to struggle to make any kind of rebound in the coming weeks. This disappointing opening is definitely not what Warner Brothers hoped for when they tried to convince the public that this was going to be one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. They went to so much effort with the nostalgia, adding in Michael Keaton's Batman and a whole bunch of live-action DC cameos. The story picks up as Barry Allen travels back in time to prevent his mother's murder, and he accidentally cracks open the DC multiverse. It seemed to be somewhat of a promising storyline. So what happened? Well, analysts believe that several factors are to blame for the film's weak initial turnout. One major roadblock is that The Flash landed on the big screen without a traditional promotional push. That's because the star, Ezra Miller, Miller has become such a controversial figure that they really didn't want to bring any more attention to their legal troubles. The actor made a rare appearance at the premiere, but they didn't take part in many interviews or other kinds of publicity efforts. A few months ago, Ezra broke into a neighbor's home without permission while they were out and stole several bottles of alcohol, but when they were caught, the actor claimed that they were in the house that wasn't theirs to look for ingredients for a recipe for their mother. They then took a plea deal for the burglary, which is a crime which would have otherwise carried a prison sentence of up to 26 years. Their lawyer released a statement saying that they accepted the conditions and that Ezra would like to acknowledge the love and support they have received from their family and friends, who continue to be a vital presence in their ongoing mental health battle. The Flash star then apologized and claimed that they were doing the necessary work to get back to a healthy, safe, and productive stage in their life. But that incident was a part of a larger pattern of really disturbing behavior, which started about a year before Ezra was arrested in Hawaii. In early April of 2020, a shocking video went viral that showed the actor choking a female fan and aggressively pushing her to the ground at a bar in Iceland. The actor was approached by a group of eager young fans who were just excited to have spotted someone that they recognized. But then Ezra quickly lost their temper and yelled, "Oh, you want to fight? That's what you want to do?" And in the clip, you could see the woman was clearly confused and thought that they were joking, but she was then grabbed by her throat and thrown to the ground. Eventually, the growing controversies put Ezra's role in the DCEU in jeopardy. They became a walking PR nightmare, and there were even calls to have them removed from the film entirely. Of course, that didn't end up happening. Warner Brothers made a choice to stick by their lead actor, likely because it was just way too expensive to replace them. Instead, they did everything they could to ensure that Ezra stayed out of the spotlight in the months leading up to the film's release, which we now know did very little to save it from becoming a major flop. Aside from the Ezra issue, there was another problem with The Flash that was more or less unavoidable. There were less than enthusiastic reactions from the audience. First of all, the news that James Gunn and Peter Safran would be rebooting the DC universe killed any interest in the upcoming movies. And another big part of this is simply superhero fatigue. For over 20 years, superhero movies ruled the cinemas. The golden age seemed to be somewhere between 2010 and 2020, when every single movie that came out was almost guaranteed to cross the $1 billion mark at the worldwide box office. Although that was never going to last very long, considering that superhero comic books and superhero movies all follow a very similar formula. Regardless of the plot, the story usually ends with the heroes beating the brand new villain of the week without almost any consequences. And even if a story doesn't end this way, there is almost nothing that studios can do at this point to shock audiences anymore. For his part, James Gunn does recognize this and seems to have embraced the idea of superhero fatigue rather than acting like it does not and will never exist. In his new position at DC, he said that he plans to create emotionally grounded, character-focused stories that will push the genre forward and maintain audiences' interest. In many ways, the last few years have seen DC release some of the most creatively interesting comic book films to ever grace the big screen. Yes, The Flash might be a bit of a miss, but it's still possible to resurrect the genre as a whole with the right direction. Now let's talk about the new rules for the Oscars, which have gotten a lot of people fired up. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is now beholden to new inclusivity standards. Starting in the March 2024 awards, movies will not be considered for a Best Picture nomination unless they meet 2 out of 4 standards. One of them is featuring a lead or significant supporting character from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. Another one is having a main storyline that focuses on an underrepresented group, or at least 30% of the cast from 2 or more underrepresented groups. As expected, these new rules have sparked outrage across the film community. Right away, a really interesting point was brought up about how this whole thing will change the landscape of award-worthy cinema. Like the fact that if it was released today, The Godfather would probably have no chance of winning a Best Picture Oscar. Other classics would likely not receive a nomination, regardless of how good they are. Movies like Gladiator and All the President's Men, and even more recent ones like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, American Hustle, and Joker would also have missed out. One director spoke to the New York Post and said, "It's completely ridiculous. I'm for diversity, but to make you cast certain types of people if you want to get nominated, that makes the whole process contrived. The person who is right for the part should get the part. Why should you be limited in your choices? But it's the world we're in. This is crazy." Richard Dreyfuss also discussed the new standards of inclusion on PBS last month and said that they make him want to vomit. He described movies as an art form and a form of commerce and said, "No one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is." An industry insider then offered some explanation into the changes and claimed that the Academy's goal is not to disqualify any films, but rather to celebrate and encourage progress towards greater representation and inclusion in the industry. One of Hollywood's biggest producers also spoke to the Post and claimed that very few people in the industry actually support these new rules. He said, "Everyone thinks the Academy went too far. It's ridiculous to tell us that we have to regulate our work. We talk about it amongst ourselves, but it's not worth speaking up publicly." Although many industry insiders clearly don't feel comfortable enough criticizing it, conservatives on social media have jumped at the chance. Charlie Kirk tweeted, "Under new rules for the Academy Awards, no film can win Best Picture unless it hits arbitrary diversity quotas. Under this rule, The Godfather, Lord of the Rings, or Saving Private Ryan would all be ineligible. This is what they mean by diversity, but it's the opposite of diversity. They want a uniform, politically correct monoculture devoid of any creativity or free expression." But even without all these inclusivity standards, the last several years of Oscar winners have actually already met this criteria. This year, Everything Everywhere All at Once took home the award, and the film features a mostly Asian cast. Last year it was Coda, which centered around a deaf family in Massachusetts. Then we have No Man Land from 2021, which revolved around Frances McDormand's widow character who travels to the US in a van. And the year before that was Parasite, which focused on two South Korean families and told a story about class, morality, and capitalism. So the Oscars have definitely made a lot of progress in recent years when it comes to representation. There's no denying that historically women and people of color have been consistently overlooked for these awards, which is why there were movements started like the Oscars So White campaign a few years ago. Obviously there is still a long way to go in terms of lack of diversity, but are these new standards really going to change that? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video.